fans of The Hobbit, they're going to get so much more.
You'll get taken on an amazing ride.
In 2 sleeps' time, people around Australia will be invited to return to an old world for a brand new adventure.
You will see more of Middle-earth than you've ever seen before.
The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, is the first of a trilogy of films adapting Tolkien's enduringly popular masterpiece. Tonight, we introduce you to the characters who will take you on the journey, along with exclusive behind-the-scenes footage that illustrates how this faraway world has become a reality. Sit back and enjoy the making of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey.
When we made The Lord of the Rings, I was absolutely sure that that was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I never realised that 10 years later, we were doing it all over again. We actually shot for 266 days on The Hobbit, which was exactly the same number of days that we shot on The Lord of the Rings. So I've sort of done the once-in-a-lifetime experience twice, but not a third time. There won't be a third time.
It was a little bit like returning to summer camp. You know, so many of the people who were part of the first journey are part of this journey. It's all coming back to me.
It was extraordinary coming back onto set with those same people. You looked around at all the faces in the crew and thought, here we go.
The same creative talent. 20 or 30 of the most senior people were Lord of the Rings veterans.
What a
would have
treat.
thought it would ever have happened again.
I know. To have a chance to return, pop the wig on and the feet on, it kind of feels like I've stepped into a time machine. And I get to meet all of these other actors who are coming along for the real long journey and sort of seeing in them a little bit what we felt like when we started.
The Hobbit is actually Professor Tolkien's most beloved book, and it's your first introduction to Middle-earth for a lot of readers.
The story of The Hobbit takes place 60 years before the events in The Lord of the Rings.
Bilbo Baggins. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
At the centre of this grand tale is a little hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, played in this film by Martin Freeman.
We join Bilbo, as the book The Hobbit does, as a kind of home-loving, fairly solitary hobbit.
They like their comfort, they like their food, and they treat strangers with suspicion. So the worst thing that could happen in Bilbo Baggins' life is to suddenly be dragged off into a dangerous adventure.
Mr. Baggins? Feely.
And Keely. At your service. You must be Mr. Boggins.
No, you can't come in. You come to the wrong house.
What? Has it been cancelled? No one told us.
No, nothing's been cancelled.
That's a relief.
Careful with these. I just had them sharpened.
It's nice, this place. Did you do it yourself?
Well, no, it's been in the family for years. That's my mother's glory box. Can you please not do that?
Keely, come on, give us a hand. Mr. Dwarven.
Let's shove this in the hole, otherwise we'll never get everyone in.
Hey, everyone? How many more are there?
Left there. Where do you want this?
Oh, no.
No, there's nobody home. Go away and bother somebody else. There's far too many dwarves in my dining room as it is. If this is some clothead's idea of a joke, I can only say it is in very poor taste. Get off, you people!
Gandalf. Fortune comes knocking on his door in the shape of 13 dwarves.
Far over the misty mountains cold.
Far to the east, over ranges and rivers, lies a single solitary peak.
The dwarves' home is called Erebor, otherwise known as the Lonely Mountain. When you enter, you're in the middle of this vast subterranean palace carved out of solid rock.
Gold and jewels were the resource on which they built their dwarf kingdom.
There was this huge amount of gold, which attracted the dragon Smaug.
Dwarves try to defend Erebor, but there's nothing they can do. Erebor is literally ripped apart.
Since then, the dwarves have been a wandering people, and many of us have been homeless.
We will seize this chance to take back Erebor!
The dwarves that turn up at Bag End are the only volunteers that have decided to back this quest. 13 people.
You asked me to find the 14th member of this company, and I have chosen Mr. Baggins.
Me? No.
The one thing with hobbits is that they are very stealthy, and that's exactly the quality that Gandalf the Wizard is looking for.
You'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back.
Can you promise that I will come back?
No.
Which brings us to the question, why does he go then? And, of course, why he goes is because he knows he will never, ever have another opportunity like this.
Wait!
Whoa. Welcome, Master Baggins, to the company of Thorin Oakenshield.
Coming up, we meet the band of dwarves who take Bilbo on the adventure of his life in the making of The Hobbit, an unexpected journey.
What is it, precious? What is it?
My name is Bilbo Baggins.
Bagginses. What is a Bagginses, precious?
I'm a hobbit from the Shire.
Oh, we like goblinses, batses and fishes, but we hasn't tried hobbitses before. Is it soft? Is it juicy?
Now, keep your distance. I'll use this if I have to. I don't want any trouble, you understand? Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
Why? Is it lost?
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
Oh, we know safe paths for hobbitses. Safe paths in the dark. Shut up.
I didn't say anything.
I wasn't talking to you.
Whilst the film is sprinkled with old favourites, the story brings new characters to life. The dwarves are a lively collection of the funny and the fierce.
Thorin is a direct descendant of a line of kings that stretches almost back to the beginnings of the dwarvish race itself.
He's gone from prince to pauper, and he's a battle-hardened warrior. He has a fierce sense of honour, but he's been hardened by life, so his outer shell is pretty impenetrable.
The dwarves, they're an incredibly proud race. They have a fire in their blood. They would unnervingly take on any race.
They're the kind of people you'd want on your side in a fight.
One of the scary things about adapting The Hobbit is the fact there's 13 dwarves, and differentiating those characters was important.
I play Ori, the dwarf. He's the anti-dwarf. He's not very good, really. He's a complete fish out of water. He's like a mummy's boy, really. He shouldn't be on this adventure. All these guys are very cool and all beards and axes and metal and...
Oin is something of a soothsayer. He's an apothecary, a healer. He invented ointment. It was called Oin's liniment, and that was abbreviated to ointment. And then somebody else took it over because we had no copyright. They mixed some tea in it, and it became ointment.
Yeah, I think Beaufort and my brother Bomber and my cousin Biffer, we come from the West. We're sort of different from the other dwarves. I think we're more simple. We're maybe less sophisticated, but I think we're on the journey to have fun, to have a bit of fighting, to have a bit of, drinking, to earn a bit of money, and I think they're good, optimistic, simple dwarves, my family.
Biffer is a sort of the odd one out of the group. I like to refer to him as the rock and roll dwarf because he has an orc axe embedded in his head, which sort of affects the way he can speak, and he speaks actually because of the injury he has. He speaks in Khuzdul, which is the secret ancient language of the dwarves.
Ne ikrit fund. Like he said, never trust an elf.
Bomber is, he's one of the younger dwarves. He's obviously the fattest dwarf. He's very rotund. He loves food. He loves to cook. So obviously there's some big food scenes in there, and that's only a part of what was going on.
While the others are making jokes and drinking and having fun, I think Dwalin's purpose is very clear to him, and he's focused on that. So he'll be sharpening the axes when the others are pouring the drinks.
Dory is the oldest of three brothers. He absolutely mothers his other two brothers completely. He worries about them constantly, especially the youngest one, who he thinks is under the influence of the middle brother, which is Nori, who's rather naughty.
I play Nori, who's he's the family Ori Dori Nori. He's the middle son. He's been away from the family because he's a bit of a ratbag and he's a kleptomaniac. He likes to steal things and make them his own. So he doesn't really know his younger brother that well, and he's not really interested in knowing his older brother that well. He's a bit of a fusspot. But he's extensively on this journey to make as much money out of other people as he can.
Give him the contract.
Warren, please, we're off.
It's just the usual summary of out-of-pocket expenses. time required, remuneration, funeral arrangements, so forth.
Gloin takes things very seriously, takes the mission that the dwarves are on very, very seriously indeed.
It's really only 3 or 4 of the dwarves that are kind of expanded in any real way. Gimli in the first film has a very distinctive look, but when you have 13 dwarves in scenes, if they all look the same, it's going to be very difficult for the watching audience.
Everyone is very different in a very individual way. It's, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to do anything. I just stick on the costume, thank God.
I think it's probably a couple of thousand drawings were made. Millions of different ideas, running all over the place.
If they were all standing on a mountainside, you had to know who they were, just from the shape.
It actually took 2 months for you to start getting used to start getting things right, because I had a special cap that I wore with the axe embedded in it. So, you know, and it would hurt like crazy at the start. So the guy that my prosthetics artist, who was excellent, we'd worked together on tweaking it and shaving bits off it to make it right so it didn't hurt anymore.
That's great. This is the best part of the whole job.
Yak hair, which the dwarves' beards and hair are made out of, holds the heat in very, very well. So releasing the heat became critical at times on very hard-working days.
Each dwarf has his own look and his own style and their own weapons.
Shut your mouth!
We managed to invent all kinds of interesting methods of warfare. Some fun, some lethal, or some fun, but all lethal.
In the end, Pete fell in love with each and every one of those characters. And as much as there's a little bit of dwarf in Peter, I think there's a little bit of Peter in all those dwarfs.
Here we go, rotate.
After the break, we discover the journey from page to screen and from dream to reality in the making of The Hobbit, an unexpected journey. Once again, Peter Jackson and his team of filmmakers have created an intricate and thrilling world for their audience. Jackson's skills as a director are multifaceted, if not endless.
He's got the whole film or films going on in his head. I really have no idea how he does it.
He has a wonderful sense of humour, which is quite sort of, what would you say, naughty. So when we were playing up, doing our stuff between all of us, he would love to join in.
He's a great collaborator too, and gives you so much freedom as an actor to create the part that you want to create and the character that you want to invest in.
I was really scared at the beginning, going, oh my gosh, I'm on set with you know, one of the top directors of the world. But you kind of soon forget that, and he becomes your friend, and it's like filming a kind of short film in his garage, although there's multi-million-dollar
like a really expensive
budget around him.
movie.
I think he is a huge fan of Tolkien. He protects the characters. He is collaborative with his actors. He trusts his actors. He is very funny. He has huge energy. He's very normal and down to earth, but he is also touched with genius. He's a visionary. He's a proud Kiwi, and he's the person to make this movie.
The wonderful thing about Peter and his team is that they make it the book and something else.
When creating the world of The Hobbit, the writers discovered hidden treasures in surprising places.
People always say, well, it's this very relatively slight novel, and so how come it's 3 movies? The Hobbit was almost a lifetime's work for Tolkien.
We went into the appendices, which you find at the end of The Lord of the Rings, and you learn very specifically about events that occurred in The Hobbit.
We're actually expanding The Hobbit, but using Tolkien's notes in the appendices very much as our blueprint.
Gandalf, where are you going?
Gandalf in The Hobbit, he's often away doing other business, and quite what that is not revealed in the novel. In the films, we get to see what Gandalf was up to when he wasn't on the journey.
Tolkien, he created a whole world, the different creatures or people who live in that world, and real history stretching back thousands of years.
There's going to be some new characters that are part of Tolkien's story that people haven't thought about.
The dark part has found a way back into the world.
Excitement looms.
Well, Radagast is a wizard. One of the 5.
We know that he's an animal-loving, forest-dwelling wizard. Your mind instantly goes to a ragged hermit-type figure.
But he loves the animals and the birds in the bushes. I'll draw them off! Go!
Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Radagast, he's all here in his heart. It's not perhaps quite all there.
The trees! They're diseased!
Radagast discovers that something's going wrong in his immaculate forest. Trees are dying, animals are dying.
Something's wrong, something's terribly wrong.
Middle-earth seems to be just beginning to rumble and tumble.
For 400 years, we have lived in peace.
Are we at peace? Orcs attacked us on the road.
As part of the expanded Middle-earth universe, Tolkien came up with the idea of the White Council, which is the United Nations of Middle-earth to some degree.
Gandalf, Elrond, Galadriel, Saruman, they play a role in illuminating those sort of broader political landscape.
The White Council, they represent enormous power. There's suspicion amongst all of them that there's this building power of evil getting stronger and stronger.
It has to be more than just the Dwarves' quest, because their quest is being affected by Middle-earth events and the rise of evil.
Seeds being planted for what eventually becomes the time period that we meet in Lord of the Rings, that lead to the great fight for Middle-earth.
If you watch, then, this suite of films in their entirety, it's wonderful that Peter's able to weave those subtle connections between the films.
One of my favourites is an older Bilbo telling children the tale of his run-in with 3 large mountain trolls.
So there I was, at the mercy of 3 monstrous trolls.
The great thing about The Hobbit is we get to see it.
Bilbo's encounter with the 3 trolls, William, Bert and Tom, is one of the most iconic passages from the book, and it was something we were really looking forward to bringing to the screen.
3 of us dwarves, Mark, myself and William, are portraying the trolls as well.
There were 3-4 days there with Peter on the mocap studio, and we had a tremendous time there, just being in our grey suits. Are we having horse tonight, or what? Shut your cake hole.
They're like a really dysfunctional group of 3 flatmates.
Directing is partly the same, really, apart from the fact that the actors look rather silly. I mean, who would want to walk around all day with a camera pointed right at their nose?
The process of getting the trolls animated, we take the data that's been tracked from the mocap stage, and then we started refining that motion, and it was the first time we saw trolls actually verbalising.
Now, are there any more of you little fellas hiding where you shouldn't? Make him squeal!
Out of this colourful group of dwarves and wizards, and there's elves, and the story of The Hobbit is to take Bilbo, as played by Martin Freeman, the young, conservative, very safety-conscious Bilbo, and to see him transform.
I have never used a sword in my life.
He finds a bravery that he didn't know he had, and he finds a sort of nobility that he didn't know he had, and none of the others knew he had.
Throughout the course of the quest, Bilbo surprises the dwarves at every stage.
Bilbo goes on the journey, and he's changed forever.
Lost. Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible. Now keep your distance. I'll use this if I have to.
I can't wait to see it. That beautiful book that Tolkien wrote in 1937 come alive for people.
There's a team here that have their heart and soul into creating something very, very special.
We all have this common goal. We want this to be a film that has this lasting impact on people because it is such a good story.
whatever age you are, trying to remember the sense of awe you had as a child. Hopefully you will leave with that awe firmly in place.
It's magic, pure magic, and you believe it.
Going back to Middle-earth, probably for the last time on the big screen, is going to be a huge thrill.
For the fans, these films are a return to a world that is both familiar but also entirely unexpected.
I'm going on an adventure!
Step into the world, step into Middle-earth, come on this adventure with us.
Why did you come?
I know you doubt me. I know you always have. I often think of Baggins. That's where I belong. That's home. You don't have one. It was taken from you. But I will help you take it back if I can.
You don't watch fighting?
The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey opens on Boxing Day.